I still remember the sound, the groan of steel, and the crash of concrete when the bulldozers tore through Victoria Taylor's mansion. She was there screaming, her voice echoing across the lake like a ghost clinging to the last shred of a lie, and I just stood on my porch, coffee in hand, watching justice level her empire of greed into dust. That's how it ended. But it started with a knock on my door and 6 words that changed everything. Enjoy the view while you can, Stephen. It was a Tuesday morning, one of those quiet ones when the lake looks like glass. I'd been retired for a year, then finally getting used to silence after decades of deadlines and concrete dust. The air smelled like pine, the coffee was strong, and I thought life had finally slowed down enough to breathe. Then I heard the click of high heels on my deck, sharp, confident, like they owned the place. I turned, and there she was, Victoria Taylor, president of the Silver Oaks HOA. Blonde hair, pearl earrings, clipboard tucked under her arm like a badge of office. Her smile was the kind that told you she'd already decided who you were before you opened your mouth. "Enjoy the view while you can, Stephen," she said, her tone syrupy and smug. "Soon this lake will belong to us." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was insane. "Lady," I told her, "this lakefront's been in my family since 1950. My grandfather bought it when it was just mud and pine trees. You can't just walk up and claim it." But Victoria didn't flinch. She adjusted her sunglasses, looked out over the water, and said, "The community believes in shared stewardship. The HOA will be applying for a zoning overlay soon. Integration is inevitable." Integration. That's what she called annexing my land. I should have seen it then, the war she was about to start, but I brushed it off. People like her thrive on attention. I figured if I ignored her, she'd move on to harassing someone else. I was wrong. Within weeks, I started noticing little things. A white picket fence that crept farther south every few days. Dog walkers cutting through my property as if the trails were public. Jet skis buzzing across the cove long after midnight. When I called the sheriff's office, they said, "We'll file a report, Mr. Thomas, but unless it escalates, there's not much we can do." Then one morning I woke to the sound of a truck beeping in reverse. I stepped out onto my porch and froze. Down by my dock, a concrete mixer was churning. Workers in neon vests hammered stakes into my soil. And there, standing over them like a general in designer sunglasses, was Victoria Taylor. I marched down the slope, heart pounding. "What the hell is this?" She smiled, calm as a viper. "Construction Stephen. For the community." "That's my land," I snapped. "You don't have a permit. You don't have a deed. You don't have anything." She tilted her head, almost pitying me. "Oh, Stephen, you're clinging to outdated paperwork. Times change. By the time you get your day in court, this will all be done." That's when she said it, the word that told me this wasn't about a clubhouse or lake access. It was about her. "The mansion will be finished by summer," she said. "It's going to be spectacular." The mansion. Not a pavilion, not a community center. A mansion on my land. That night I walked the shoreline with a flashlight tracing the rusted boundary stakes my grandfather had driven into the dirt 70 years ago. They were still there, crooked but true. Proof. My proof. I stood by the last one near the dock and made a promise I wasn't going to let some power-drunk HOA president erase my family's name. But over the next few weeks, it felt like she already had. Her people laughed when I told them to stay off my property. The county zoning office gave me the runaround. "We'll review your complaint, sir, but these things take time." Even my neighbors avoided me. One guy actually said, "Come on, Stephen, it's just a few feet of dirt. Don't make it ugly." That's when doubt crept in. Maybe I was too stubborn. Maybe my grandfather's old deeds didn't mean much anymore. One night, I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by yellowing maps and coffee cups and whispered to myself, "What if I'm the problem here?" But then I remembered something my father used to say, "If you don't stand your ground, they'll take more than your land. They'll take your name." That snapped me out of it. I picked up the phone and called an old friend, Walter. We'd served together once long ago. These days he was a real estate attorney, the kind who still believed in paper trails and justice. "Tell me what you've got," he said. "An HOA president building a palace on my lakefront." He chuckled. "Oh, that kind of trouble." By the next morning he was at my kitchen table, coffee in hand, flipping through my old maps and deeds. When he found my grandfather's original survey, he grinned. "This right here," he said, tapping the faded paper, "is a bullet. Let's load it." That afternoon, we filed an emergency injunction to stop all construction, and for a brief moment I thought the nightmare might end there. But Victoria wasn't the type to respect a court order. Within days, trucks were back at dawn dropping off supplies in secret. The mansion's skeleton rose higher each morning, a monument to arrogance. Walter said we needed more, something that would end this for good. So I dug deeper. Literally. I drove to the county archives, a dusty basement full of old records and flickering lights. Hours passed before I found it, a 1975 easement signed by my grandfather, notarized and still valid. It declared a 100-foot preservation buffer along the southern shore of Greenwater Lake, no permanent construction allowed. And Victoria's mansion stood less than 20 feet from the water. But that wasn't all. Among the old files, I discovered a letter from 1981, my grandfather writing to the Clearwater Historical Trust about a small family burial site hidden in the woods near the bend of the shoreline. I'd seen those stones once as a boy, moss-covered names almost gone. If that graveyard was recognized as heritage ground, Victoria wasn't just trespassing, she was desecrating. I brought it all to Walter. His eyes lit up. "Stephen, this isn't just a civil case anymore. This is preservation law. You've got her cornered." The next week, the hearing began. The courtroom was packed. Silver Oaks residents, reporters, county officials. Victoria walked in dressed like royalty, heels clicking chin high. She didn't even look at me, but I looked at her and thought, "You have no idea what's coming." Walter laid everything out: 3 generations of deeds, photos of boundary markers, drone footage of the shoreline. Then he dropped the bomb: Victoria's forged plat map shifting the property line 30 feet into my land, signed only by her. The judge's eyebrow twitched. "This map has no certification, no approval." "Who submitted this?" Victoria's lawyer stammered. "Our client believed the boundaries were due for reclassification." The judge shot back. "Believed, not verified." Then came the financial records: $500,000 siphoned from HOA funds into a shell company called Taylor Property Management, LLC. Every dollar spent on her mansion. The courtroom erupted. Even her own neighbors gasped. The judge's gavel cracked through the noise. "Enough. This court finds clear evidence of fraud, trespass, and misappropriation. All construction is to cease immediately and indefinitely." Her voice sharpened. "The structure erected on Mr. Thomas's property will be demolished at the HOA's expense." Victoria's face went white. When we walked out, she followed me into the parking lot, trembling with rage. "You think this makes you a hero?" she hissed. "You've humiliated me in front of my board. You'll regret this, Stephen." I looked her dead in the eye. "No, Victoria. The only thing you'll regret is underestimating me." A week later, the county trucks arrived at dawn. Bulldozers lined the path like soldiers preparing for war. Reporters gathered on the hill. Even some of the HOA residents came to watch. I stood on my porch boots, planted firm, coffee steaming in the cold morning air. Walter stood beside me, hands in his coat pockets. "You ever think you'd see this day?" he asked. "Not like this," I said. The first bulldozer roared forward. Steel hit concrete with a crack that echoed across the lake. Walls split open. Glass shattered. Dust rolled through the air like smoke from a battlefield. Every impact was a heartbeat of justice. And then, like fate couldn't resist one last scene, a white SUV skidded to a stop on the gravel. Victoria stumbled out, no pearls, no blazer, just a hoodie and jeans. She pushed past the caution tape, screaming, "Stop! That's my house. You can't do this." The site supervisor stood calm. "Court-ordered demolition, ma'am. Please step back." She turned to me, tears streaking through dust. "You could have let it go, Stephen. You didn't have to destroy me." I set my mug down on the railing. "You never had it, Victoria. It was never yours to take." Her knees gave out. She sank into the dirt as the bulldozers kept grinding. No one spoke. No one moved. The house fell piece by piece until only rubble remained, a broken skeleton swallowed by its own arrogance. By evening, the machines were gone. The air was still. I walked to the shoreline, knelt beside one of my grandfather's old boundary stakes, bent and rusted, but still standing. "We did it, old man," I whispered. We kept our name. And that's the thing about justice, it doesn't always roar. Sometimes it grinds slow, cold, and unstoppable until nothing false is left standing.